Hello, and thank you for joining me in this look at Ruth and the structure of Ruth. It's so nice to have you to share this with, and it's wonderful. And I hope you will talk to me in the comments, and we can discuss what this means. And I want to hear your insights as well. In this second part of Act 1, we saw in the first part, which I forgot to mention in the last video, but which is chapter 1 verses 1 to 4. We saw in the last video the overall shape of the story. In this video, we're looking at part 2, which goes from about verse 5 to verse 10. And this introduces the main players, the main characters, in a little bit more detail. So if part 1 was the overall shape of the plot, part 2 is the kind of characteristic action of the main characters. Let's dive in. So in the first part, in verse 5, we have the husband Elimelech and Mahlon and Chilion, the two sons, they die. That's their characteristic action. And they're no longer present in the story. Then we have Naomi, and her characteristic action, what's said about her is she's left without her two sons and her husband, and she prepares to go back because Israel has food now. So it's almost like she was waiting. Well, it is like she was waiting in Moab for there to be food in Israel. So her characteristic action is to, in her place of emptiness, to wait for things to get better. Also, excuse me, what we see here is that she is sort of the antagonist of the story. If the story goal, in this section anyway, if the story goal is for Elimelech's line to continue, for the kingly line to continue, which will eventually beget the king, Naomi is dissuading her daughters-in-law from coming with her, and at this point they're her only hope. She says so herself, that even if she's going to marry tonight and have a child, they've got to wait a long time before he can marry and have children. Yeah, in retrospect, because we know that Ruth is going to be the one at this point in the story, she is the antagonist, even though we might think she's being faithful at this point because she doesn't want to continue the kingly line through foreigners, maybe. We don't know, but in terms of the story as it is as a whole, she is the antagonist here. So her characteristic action, the way she operates, the main action that she will take throughout the story is to just wait for things to get better. Then we have the two daughters-in-law. We have Orpah and Ruth. And Orpah, her characteristic action, well, both of them show loyalty to Naomi. And Orpah kind of shows the flip side of Ruth's decision, showing that it's actually a reasonable choice to stay in Moab, and as Naomi puts it, it's the better choice. And so Orpah shows that this is a good choice, and that it's not just that Ruth is coming with Naomi because she has no better options. But Ruth's characteristic action is to be a loyal friend. And so for the rest of this first section, the story will concentrate on Naomi and Ruth. So it outlines their weaknesses. So we've seen their characteristic actions. Naomi's characteristic action is to wait to be provided for, and her weakness is that her husband and her sons are dead. So if her story goal is to continue on her husband's line, she has no husband or sons. Ruth's characteristic action is to be a loyal friend, and her weakness is that she is from Moab. So in terms of being someone who can help Naomi to continue on her husband's line, that is going to be an obstacle, because the Israelites were supposed to be separate from the surrounding nations. In this part of the story as well, we see the call to adventure. So we see the main characters and their characteristic actions, and then we have a call to adventure. So remember, we talked about A world. The A world is the world where the problem is. The call to adventure catapults the characters into the B world, where they will actually have a character change that will help them address the problem in the A world. So this the entry into the B world is preceded by a call to adventure, and it's followed, and there is a time of deliberation or struggle where they decide whether to take that call or not. So the call to adventure for Ruth and Orpah is to go to Israel with Naomi, and that is presented by Naomi packing up and getting ready to go. So the conflict or opposition to this call to adventure comes in the form of Naomi. So she's acting as the opponent, and the conflict takes the form of almost rejecting Ruth from being part of her family. She says, "You have your people to go to, I'm going back to my people." And she's also rejecting Ruth as a potential surrogate who can continue her husband's line, the soon-to-be royal line. So that part is a really important part, that deliberation. It can take the form of an internal struggle. Should I go? Should I not? Or it can take the form of an external opponent coming in and saying, no, you should not be doing this, and trying to oppose the main character, which here is Ruth, to take the call to adventure. And so Naomi, the way that Naomi tries to dissuade Ruth and Orpah is to tell them that that she has nothing to give them, and that she frees them to go and find another husband, which I guess logically speaking is a nice thing to do, because realistically she doesn't have anything to offer them in terms of a husband. And that takes us to the end of the second section. In the next section, we're going to be seeing how she actually takes that call to adventure, and I look forward to going through that with you.